All right, thanks. Go ahead, take it away.
All right, well, I cannot see you guys, so I hope you can see me and see my slide. Basically, what we are doing at HUD, Department of Housing and Urban Development, and my agency is called GinnieMae, which is the Government National Mortgage Association. It's a corporation owned by HUD. And the mission is really housing, affordable housing, Indian and public housing, building hospital, building school. That's what we finance. Uh, so for us, we have systems, we had legacy systems that we have modernized, and our system works. I mean, the housing industry systems, they do work. But for us, the introduction of blockchain is bringing a very good prospect and very good savings for us in terms of the underlying technologies offerings. For example, security is really covered. The data transparency is really covered. And for us, that transparency is really something very attractive for GinnieMae in terms of bringing data in front of the issuers, and we call them issuers. Those are bank and non-banks that deals with us in buying and selling mortgages and putting them in our chain to securitize them and push them to the Wall Street and for investors. And I am going to be joined by one of my colleague, Mike Hoffman. He's on also on the call. And for me, I run the smallest lab in the world, basically. It's one person, but I am supported by vendors. So I do a lot of just coordination and collaboration and recommendation for GinnieMae. We don't have staff. All our staffs are vendors. So we have the Deloitte working with us. We have the Guidehouse. We have IBM. Those are really the team that I have. And we do a lot of POCs and prototypes, and we do them in emerging technology. That's really my responsibility. So I do AI, I do machine learning, I do Gen AI, I do blockchain, low code, no code. These are the things that we develop, and we currently have a few systems going to production in what the Innovation Lab has recommended. So for us, in terms of the blockchain, we're very well connected. We are trying to definitely have a very strong working relationship with the GBA. So Gerard has been very helpful in terms of connecting with me and bringing the housing industry to the fold of this working group. So this is great for us, and we definitely want to get some input, help. We don't want to disturb the market with technologies. And also there is an organization called MISMO, which is part of the MBA, the Mortgage Banker Association, that they have a blockchain working group. And I do intend to bring Gerard to speak about the maturity model of blockchain. This is something definitely would add value to what we do. So here we go. So this is the agenda, and it's a very small agenda that my team has used to educate folks in VA and USDA and FHA and FHFA. We educate them in the blockchain position of GinnieMae. So, we define certain goals. We are looking at what the Innovation Lab can explore in terms of prototypes and POC. And then we formed a U.S. Federal Housing Network, which is it's almost like creating an ecosystem that will understand the implementation of this technology. And I have given here my contact information. If anybody wants to lend a hand, give us an insight, give us information, please feel free to do so. I mean, this is the ecosystem. Has been shared and worked with our colleagues from IBM, and Mike Hoffman is on the line. And this is really the process of housing. We don't do all of it. We are really in the secondary. So we are almost like in the middle. So I'm sure most of you have experience with mortgages. Uh, so when you buy your house, you go to a bank, you go to a mortgage company, you get your loan, and then either that bank service your loan or some other, you know, entity send you information to say, please pay us, we are servicing your loan. And then you just make that monthly payment, but you don't know what happened to that payment from the time it leaves your wallet and all the processes traversed to end up to the investor who invested in your property or who allow you to have that loan. And that person, sometimes it's not really the US government, and it's not the Fannie and Freddie. The Fannie and Freddie and GinnieMae are a conduit. The investor probably is some other, institutions out there, that have funds that allow this process to work. So we have the origination, that's where the loan gets started, and then the servicing, that's the first, the folks that takes the money, deals with any anomalies on that process, and the secondary, which really takes that loans, package it in what we call pool, and then allow the fund to be replenished by selling it in the investor market. So these are basically the whole process. And then underline, you have all the document that you have provided or the lender will provide, and those are to support the loan and to support the pool and support this process of mortgage funding. So these are basically everything that goes on this process. So it's complex, but it's very repetitive, and that's one of the problem is the data gets transferred from one entity to another and to another, and that causes a reconciliation nightmare for us. So for us, we're trying to really save money, save time by introducing technology that will allow collaboration and sharing of data. So this is important for us, and that will translate to a saving to our citizens who are buying homes. And we only fund in the US. We don't fund any international property, especially us. I don't know about Fannie and Freddie. I'm sure they do the same thing. So for us, if we can save our taxpayers some money in their housing transaction, that's a very good prospect for us. So that's one. And also the latency takes probably 30 to 60 days for a transaction to complete. So for us, again, that latency is causing us some funds that we can make available to the investors, and also to make sure that there is more interest in our housing sector. So the investor really are the fuel that allow us to fund this type of affordable housing for us. For Fannie and Freddie, they're more on the conventional side, more on a different market sector. So with that, I'll go to the next slide. So this is the goal that we have set. This is what we have committed to our leadership, that we're gonna, we can assess and we can prove whether this technology can do it or not. So for us, the transparency in terms of the data based on a role, based on a persona, you would have that access and it's secure. We will reduce the latency. And also when you transfer a loan from one place to another, because as you know, and I don't know if it happens to some of you, you would have a relationship with a mortgage company, and then all of a sudden you are getting a letter saying, pay this new mortgage company because we own your loan. So this transfer, it's very cumbersome. It's very, there is a lot of things that can happen, a lot of hiccups. So for us, we're trying to streamline that and make sure that it's a down packed, it's a good process, and it's doesn't have any flaws. So this is very important for us in terms of allowing the industry not to have a lot of challenges, especially when we start transferring these loans and all the liquidations and all the foreclosure that happens. We need to make sure that we have the transparency and that veracity in our process. And for the scalability, we want to make sure that this technology scale. We cannot, because the volume of transaction we deal with. So we deal with millions of transactions out there. So we cannot, we are not Bitcoin. It's much larger than that. So we need to make sure that the technology is scalable and the performance is not degraded by bringing blockchain to it. Now, for us, we just didn't do blockchain. I mean, we used Hyperledger Fabric for one of our POCs with our colleagues from IBM, who did a great job for us. And we also introduced smart contracts, and smart contract is key for us. We need that, and we are also we're exploring different type of smart contracts. So these are the things that we have put on our radar. And then for sure, I mean, security is key, and we worked with our CISO to make sure that their question can be answered. So these are very important elements of the deployment. Again, we're still at the POCs, prototype stage. We don't have anything in production yet, but we are connected with vendors and with entities out there that have blockchain in production, and we're connecting with them and understanding their experience, understanding what they do, and it's a very, very good promise that blockchain brings to the housing market. So this is, again, the things we follow with our colleagues, with our vendor partners, and we are very active in terms of trying to see if this technology can bring in additional value to what we do for the housing finance sector. And we, in terms of the standard, in terms of the data, we have standard. In terms of which blockchain flavor we're going to use, we don't know yet. And I'm going to share with you guys which one we have selected. And we only selected those blockchain because of the scope and the limitation of funds we have to conduct testing. So we couldn't do all the gamuts out there, but we selected 2 or 3, and that's basically what we have completed. Now, we do understand this, and this is something we shared with our leadership in terms of blockchain. I don't think we're gonna be advocating for public blockchain. I think probably something in the middle that we're gonna be, recommending. So this is something that we are trying to prove with our POCs, and our leadership understand the impact. And we are hoping to create this ecosystem that can collaborate on a blockchain environment. And these are the blockchain that we have assessed. We did Hyperledger and also Ethereum. We have looked at it, and we didn't do thorough testing in the Ethereums. We start looking at Corda R3. So Ethereum was on the list. I wanted to do it, but I think Corda R3, because of certain requirements we have imposed on our partner, and I'm just going to call them partners. So when you hear partners, that's Deloitte, Guidehouse, IBM, and also Bank of New York. Those are really the folks I work with on a daily basis, basically. And Amazon QLDB. So AWS was involved with us. So these 2 POCs or prototypes have been completed, Amazon QLDB and the Hyperledger. Corda R3, we just completed the POC. And the reason why we selected Corda over Ethereum is because I have imposed document requirements on them, meaning I want document to be carried and to be part of that transaction on the blockchain. And as you guys know, the loan has a lot of document supporting that, the e-notes, the appraisal, the insurance, all the borrower information, anything that support that package for the loan to be perfected and sold in the market. These documents for us, they are important. And we have entity called document custodian that verify and validate this document, that they are bona fide, that they're good, and that the title is there, and that all the information is sound, and there is no fraud in those type of supporting documentation. Again, we are still going, because this really will be big in terms of the housing industry. On the blockchain, we will recommend. So we're very careful, and the government does not want to support any product over another. we're very conscientious about that, and we work with our partners in this summit that we attend religiously, the Mesmo summit, which was the last time was in Portland, Oregon. And I was there, and we talked about blockchain, and Mike Hoffman was there also. So for us, we're very, careful in terms of advocating for any technology. We do recommend blockchain. I mean, that is something that we want. And I do look forward to connecting with GBA to make sure the maturity model is something that is socialized and and helps us put some standard on this technology. But for us, we are not there yet in terms of picking one technology over another. So I'm just going to stop here and see if there is any question or anything that Mike Hoffman wants to add. Mike? No
Yeah,
question?
Omar, I think that was a pretty good overview. Some of the things, and you mentioned Mismo, I think was pretty key in that the having a data standard that's where there's a couple thousand members of the organization definitely enables enables something like a blockchain kind of approach that it could be adopted across an ecosystem. So looking at having worked, and Omar mentioned, I mean, I work with Guidehouse now, and I'd worked with Bank of New York prior and worked on a number of blockchain, POCs and solutions. And that interoperability, once you start to get all the entities in, and very difficult in other ecosystems to get kind of that common view and an agreement on shared data. So that's definitely a large step up. So for interoperability, not just across data sets, but also across functions and then organizations is a pretty key piece. And then looking at the life cycle of a mortgage is another piece that Omar alluded to, because it's native to his business. But if you look at healthcare, you look at some of the others, looking at that life cycle, what information is shared, the access roles for read and edit are also a difficult challenge. Again, having MISMA to kind of present, walk through that also enables you to walk through different functions. So very interesting structure to look at from standards, and it actually relates pretty well or connects pretty well to what, the way the GBA runs as well.
No, I agree. And that's why definitely I want to make that connection, because I am familiar with the healthcare. I was working on the affordable care, and it took us a long time to come up with the NEEM data standard and for the what we call Obamacare. So this is we came a long way in the housing sector in terms of adopting a standard called MISMO. And the MISMO, it has a lot of community of practice that deals with, all facets of mortgage and housing, processes. So, and blockchain is one of them. AI, emerging technology, is another. But what they really have, linking all these banks and non-banks, mortgage companies, is this canonical model called MISMO, and it's an XML. Now it's going JSON, but it's the data standard that govern how we transact and how we call things, how we label things, the enumeration that we use. So for us, we came a long way. I've been involved with MISMO for more than 12 years. So this is a really, really important, element, an ingredient in the housing sector that makes everybody talks the same. Instead of, you have to reconcile, you have to, translate things. It's the same standard. So this is something that everybody adapts in their data exchanges. Now, for us, in terms of when we sit with our leadership, and as I said, we sat with IBM and we talked about, the offering of a blockchain and what it will bring to us. There was a lot of, things that they just really were not interested in. But for us, what really pull us to this technology is the immutability of the record. So, cannot be changed. So there is some trust there. So transparency, the hashing, the crypto, all that control, the security controls that will be put on the chain is important for us, and this will bring us all into one ecosystem. So for us, we are seeing this as a game changer for us. Instead of everybody have their single databases out there that they have to babysit, they have to manage. We're looking at a repository of truth that it cannot be challenged. It's safe kept by certain agency. I'm not going to say that GinnieMae is the one that's going to raise their hand and say I am the custodian of everything, but I think there is a lot of things to be resolved. But for us, we are seeing the blockchain security mechanism as an important element of what we do. So these are the use cases we proposed. For us, we have completed them. One, it's for the issuer reporting, and the other one is data sharing in terms of the transfer of mortgages. And they both were proven. Mike Hoffman was involved in this two use cases. I'm doing another one with the Corda R3, and we're looking at it, and we are going to be done in about a week or two. And the scalability was there, the performance, the linking with repositories like RDS Aurora was also proven. So we're going to be probably proceeding to the next step, which is not really doing a production deployment. We're not there yet. We're going to extend it to do an enhanced POC or maybe a prototype that really brings in our partners to work with us on this. And partners, when I talk about the partners, I will talk about it some more. We are talking about folks also like FHA, VA, USDA, FHFA. So those are, and also the issuers, and the issuers can be the large one like Capital One, Wells Fargo, or it can be a small mom and pop shops somewhere that also for us, we consider them. And, for us as a government agency, we are very sensitive to small business. So it's very important for us not to impact them. It's very important for us to help them and bring them to the fold. So for us, that's always something that comes different when we start talking in this summit, that the way we look at small businesses, we encourage them. We don't want to impose on them any additional burden. What we want them to do is serve their area, and especially the underserved that lack access to this major institution, this large institution. So for us, we're very sensitive to that. We want to make sure we propose few solutions that allows for that allows for folks to piggyback on a system that they don't have to make any investment on, and just focus on serving the citizen that needs access to housing, need access to their homes. First home ownership is important for us, and because we believe that in housing, this is a way to build wealth. This is how you can build prosperity. So for us, folks that don't have access to this fund, to these loans, are being deprived from one of the services that this nation is given to a citizen, and that's home ownership. So for us, it's key. We are very sensitive to their challenges, and we are hoping that we can position GinnieMae and HUD and the other partners we have in this ecosystem to be of service. Now, so this is just more details, and you can see that ecosystem and the complexity of the ecosystem. Again, same thing. It really doesn't change in terms of who gets touched by our process. Everybody's involved. I mean, the loans comes from the VAs, and the VA is involved with it, so assisting our veterans in terms of gaining access to home, maintaining their payment, mitigating risks for them, all the way to the investor who's looking at the investment and being insured and assured that this is a viable and a profitable business to be involved with. So for us, we need to balance that. We don't want investors, national and international, to shy away from committing to this market, committing to bringing fund to our housing sector. So this is really important, and our leadership are doing a great job. Our president, Alana, she is really very involved in terms of pushing the envelope and making sure that there is stability in this market, that there is funds availability to those bank and non-bank that deals in this area. So this is something that has been working, and it's working, and it's really benefiting our citizens in this country. So, and I am here to also ask, and especially if you see that technology, an area that can help us, it would be a great help. This is something that our colleague Mike Hoffman and everybody, and I'm going to ask him to opine on this one, but this is the data exchange. This is the cost reconciliation and redundancy, and sometimes the records are completely different, and everybody needs to maintain the record, and then the reconciliation, as you can see, it's a nightmare, from everybody. And then the delays from the time you make the payment, it does not come to the investor only after like a few weeks. I mean, I think we're estimating it as 60 days. So with that, it's for us, we see great saving just in this one here. And this, as you can see, we're sitting in the middle. We have the borrowers, the issuers and servicers who manage your loans and give you the loan, to the pay agents who do the pass-through payment to the investor, to the treasury who gets involved with us, and the investor and the guarantor agency who have programs like VA. They have programs for our vet, FHA for the low income, for the affordable, the hospital, the schools, USDA for agriculture loans. So these are all important elements in our housing sector that the government takes care of. So, Mike Hoffman, if you want to chime in on this slide, please do so. Mike?
No, it's interesting seeing this slide as from the audience side. A couple of things that came clear here, which were particularly helped make a case for why use blockchain, and one was obviously security, as Omar mentioned. These are all, as you can see on this slide, financial transactions and financial transactions within some pretty large, we'll say, ledgers at each of the organizations. But one of the other things that became clear was a lot of the expense in this. This is really a serial process, right? The data moves from stage to stage, in this case, from left to right. And then there's some that moves from right to left. But that serial process is very expensive from a trust standpoint, and not financial trust, but trust in the zero trust kind of a sense, that each agency at each gate has to go and verify and recertify that all the values are correct, right? And that process is expensive in dollars, and also expensive in time. What we're able to identify is that the majority of the data moving through this process, anywhere from 60 to 90% of the data is the same data, right? So the data on the left-hand side and the data on the right-hand side are highly similar. So there's tremendous efficiencies in creating like a meta model where all of these agencies, all of the actors within them share the same data set. And it was very new thinking. It makes you start to think of traditional processes. And again, this process is roughly 40 years old. But if we look at it with like how would you engineer this today, and how would you engineer with something like blockchain, where all of the users When you look at identity management, et cetera, everybody's authorized, authenticated. So highly secure from the users, from a viewing editing standpoint, and everything is traceable. You would design it very differently, and that's really what Omar's work has been showing the different agencies and the different parties how this can work. The savings in terms of time. We go to near time kind of posting of transactions. Everything becomes almost simultaneous. You still have all your checks and balances. You have your ability to edit and update if you're authorized to that level. The cost part of the scenario, it can reduce that transaction expense and the recertification expense. Anywhere from 70 to 90 some odd percent. So huge changes, and it then changes a lot of some of the individual policies as well, which is another big issue on the government side. Is when you look at some of the charters and compliance and regulatory pieces, they were written to prevent things that can go wrong in that serial process that are solved in this kind of digital native process. So but again, you have to go through this design before you see where some of those issues are. So Omar's, as a army of one, has all these layers in addition to just the technology that he needs to pay attention to, and has been doing a very good job at bringing in the different stakeholders and reviewing this. So I think the lab, the way it's been designed, has been particularly strong in that measure, both internal buy-in and understanding, as well as external presentations like today.
No, for me, it's really the partner doing a great job. I mean, for me, working with folks from Guidehouse and the bank and the Deloitte and the IBM is great help. I mean, because I piggyback on their wealth of information, and the resources. So, I don't want to limit GinnieMae to the resources in our pool, the federal employees, which we don't have that many. I mean, we're a very small agency. And for me to bring in resources, you need a lot. You need blockchain SME, you need the technical, you need the repository folks, you need security folks, you need the people that understand the mortgage standard, that have experience with that. You can't do that, in-house. And this is not meant for in-house development. And I think we were situated very well. We had the contact with those organizations, and they bring in their experience and and their knowledge to the table, and that helped. So for us, the biggest thing really is this data reconciliation and the transparency and the access to data and notification when something change. So these are all important elements that everybody in this chain really likes and they want to see.
I think Gerard has a question.
Yeah, Gerard, go ahead.
Omar, thank you very much. A great presentation. Actually, my question is aimed at you, Michael. Your organization is dealing with primarily banking and financial data standards. Is that correct?
Oh, I was referring to MISMO. So MISMO is all mortgage and all the mortgage processes. So banks, non-banks, et cetera. So Guidehouse and I am a member of MISMO, as is Omar.
Gotcha. So we just put out the banking and financial services supplement to the blockchain maturity model, and one of the use cases that it focuses on is lending. We're going to be delivering this to the United Nations as part of an activity to get global standards, global blockchain standards. And it seems to me that I just dropped a link to the banking and financial services supplement. It seems to me that we ought to include in the bank and financial services, specifically under the area of lending, either A, a requirement, or B, at least informative text to the data standards associated with MISMO, because we might be able to help push that along as a global standard, because we'll have the the UN and the Internet Governance Forum community all looking at this. And then the other thing is I mentioned that you said something about land titling. Bobby Reynolds is actually creating the land titling supplement. So I want to make sure that if we're developing a housing supplement, that the land titling, the bank and finance, that all of those dots should connect. Because when we go forward to create a global family of standards that we'll be performing assessments with, we want to make sure that the standards themselves interoperate.
Yeah, and and I saw I have on one of the screens the standards work that's being done with land title and identity management. Omar also has a piece which is an ecosystem view. So when you zoom out, all the different pieces that are connected, which I don't think, Omar, when we started, we had thought of all of the other pieces when you really go across the entire life cycle, which would be very important for banking and financial services, right? So when what we did was we included the borrower in that chain, and when you include the borrower has a checking account, savings account, et cetera, and this is an asset that they manage on the capital market side. So we were able to go and do that. So you have an ecosystem kind of view, which ties in the identity management and land and property titling. Land and property titling is what Omar referenced early on when he talked about the document custodian, which certifies that the title that's in your loan mortgage, that is being financed, that the title has been matches the property address, matches the record that's notarized with the and in the loan file with the municipality, right?
Yeah.
So all those different pieces, you start to see how they connect, and then you have these meta models. So the meta model, another piece to include is the FML with the financial modeling language.
Right.
So take all those given, especially in this idea of these large language models, and I think all this gets accelerated at a pace that we hadn't quite anticipated.
No,
Omar, we've been designing at a large language model kind of view. That's kind of what Mismo gives us a little bit of, and I think now we can go even further, faster.
Yeah,
Wow.
Gerard, definitely we can connect with the banking sector. The only thing is when you talk with the bank, the lending, it's very broad. I mean, there is personal loan, there is car loan. We don't do that. So for us, if it's the housing loan, the mortgage loan, yeah, absolutely. This is something that we deal with in the Mismo, and anything that we can do to help will be great. I mean, definitely this is an area of interest to us. So feel free to make the connection.
I think from an architectural standpoint, the way I see this happening is the bank and financial services as a broad thing. You see the different use cases there. It sort of subdivides, but then I think we can draw to lower, more granular, more detailed sort of sub requirements. So if you're doing loans, that's one subcategory. Then within that could be car loans, real estate loans. But interestingly enough, they all have to connect to some kind of property registry, some sort of property manner. So I'm in the process of trying to visualize that. I will drop one other thing in the chat. Part of what we're going to be doing as we roll out is for particular industries, creating pages. So if anybody wants to know anything about blockchain, I just put the voting one in as an example. So if anybody's interested in learning about voting, they can come and they can go to one place where here are the documents, here are the applications that have been reviewed and listed as trusted. Here are the videos on the subject. Here's the documents you can download. Here are experts in the field. And so I'm thinking that maybe for housing, we do something like this, and in here somewhere we create that ecosystem view that you just showed.
Well, let's do this. I mean, let's park this for now, Gerard. I'm definitely interested, so I can bring in the folks that are helping us, and we can, set up, a working group to discuss this. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah,
I do see another question. Anybody? Josh, I cannot see who wants to ask
Oh,
questions.
Ryan Wald.
Ryan, go ahead. Ryan's
on mute.
Okay. Well, let me just go through this. I'm going to go quickly on the Federal Housing Network, and this is what Mike was alluding to. It's in terms of the current state, which is really all over the place, fragmented, and the future state where you have this synergy, this link between all the players. Again, just for Gerard's benefit, when we don't just deal with banks, the mortgage companies are also in the ecosystem. Those folks give loans, but only give mortgage loans. So that's another area. But definitely there is this link between all these players that we need to manage in an ecosystem. We need to make sure we mitigate the risk for them, and that they are informed on technology changes. And this is a picture that Mike and I have designed in terms of where we see this ecosystem, this network sitting. As you can see, it's really linking everybody. It's linking the bank, credit union, mortgage companies, the issuers, and the issuers are the folks that package those mortgages into some kind of pool and send it to us. The servicers who are servicing the loan, collecting the payment, title company responsible for the insurance of the titles and the property, and the fintech, which is infusing us with technology, with ideas, and the doc custodians who make sure that there is certification and validation of the property information and also loan information. So this is something that we need to manage on behalf of the government, on behalf of GinnieMae, and also on behalf of the housing sector. This is something that gets managed by my colleagues at GinnieMae, by our partners like Bank of New York, the Guidehouse, the Deloitte, and the IBM. This is a process that has been tuned, and we are introducing this working group. I think it's going to be probably called a marketplace. We're working toward that, but it's really, bringing technology in a smooth way without any disruption. And for us, disruption, this is not something we want to cause. Again, this is the same thing, just showing exactly how the Innovation Lab is conducting their value adds, and where we see the POC going. One of the POC I'm doing currently, it's really on post issuance, and this is a different concept from what we have been doing before. I mean, the other POCs was mainly transfers of mortgages from one entity to another. This one is really a selling process that we are doing, where a mortgage company will bring in their mortgages to the marketplace, and an issuer or another mortgage company buys them and then put them in the chain and sell them to GinnieMae, so they get packaged in a pool. This is again, and this is really something that Mike and I has been tuning and talking about, all the ecosystem. So when you hear ecosystem, this is the slide that help us map it. And again, we're happy to come again and do more deep dive, Mike and I, into this area. We don't have a lot of time now, but as you can see, there's complexity, there is all these players, there is all this coordination that needs to take place. And this is something that we have announced. We have conducted a training exercise for the agencies, and it's been very successful. We call it like Blockchain 101, where we educate them, and we're not bringing like a blockchain technology. We're mainly educating them on what we are considering. So for us, we definitely look forward to the help that Josh and his team are doing in terms of bringing technology to us. And it has been key. I didn't miss any meetings. This is really a great help that Josh is doing for us, and Sandy before him. So this is really great stuff. I mean, for us, we get inspired by these vendors that comes and willing to share with us their technology. Also, the work that Gerard is doing with the standard agency. We are a big believer in standard. We are a big believer in bringing in other entity managing this change for us. Again, this is just one of the announcements, and we communicated with our partners on the technology and the finding and the security implications and the cost of the implementation, and it has been going very well. So with that, I'm just going to open it for question. We only have 3 minutes, so I think Ryan has a question.
Hi there. Yeah, I was curious about interoperability between chains. You mentioned Hyperledger and private and public type of chains. With so many players involved, I was curious what your thoughts are on interoperability.
Well, it's for us. This is something. Remember, Mike, we discussed it in Mesmo, and
Yeah, interoperability becomes an issue, and actually it's in two dimensions. It's a luxury if you get to the second dimension. The second dimension is you have a lot of you have a mix of paper and digital. The first dimension is how do you get these different organizations to work work with each other, and something that's a little bit subtle in those last two diagrams that Omar had up there. So since GinnieMae is at the end of that chain of the serial information, and then at the beginning of it going to the capital markets, that interoperability piece is Ginnie ends up with all the data at the end. It all has to then go through a series of rules to be eligible to go to market. What we looked at was looking at more of a publish and subscribe model, since Ginnie's portfolio is about $2.2 trillion. There's so much content there. A lot of the data, in fact, probably is the same properties with different borrowers, or in the same borrowers then on new properties. So a lot of those things, there's some efficiencies if you really want to get intelligent about the design. And that's another way to get parties to participate, is to share their information in and share information out. So there's again, that's probably a third dimension, is how do you commercialize it and kind of make it self-funding. But interoperability in terms of from blockchain to blockchain type, that's what Omar referenced, I think, too, when he said we're experimenting with a number of different blockchains. This has been going on for about, what, 3 years, Omar? So
yeah,
blockchain itself has been maturing, right? So the idea is not to lock down on any. We would have made an incorrect bet if we bet the farm on any blockchain 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, and for us, really, the most sensitive issue for that is the impact it will cause to the small players. So for us, we cannot force anybody to come to any platform, without really showing the value to them. So, but this is a big discussion within the Mesmo. Interoperability it's something that we've discussed with all the agencies, with the NBA, and for us, the impact, who is the custodian, and who access what, and also how we're going to secure it, and is it against the charter and the government mission. So these are all being discussed, and again, we can put that on the radar for now, but it's a big discussion. I see another hand, but this is something, Ryan, that we can continue discussion, and I welcome any email from you to provide further clarification.
Hey, Omar. Yeah, Marquis Allen, thanks for this presentation. This is exciting stuff. And Mike, thanks for your insight on the presentation. You've done a really thorough job, I think, in mapping out the pathway to production and how GinnieMae wants to adopt this. Do you have any sense of timing? When do you think you'll be able to get this thing in production so that GinnieMae can point to this as an example of collaboration and of, it's all about, instilling confidence in agencies and in the populace that's going to be using this technology by having examples of it working. When do you think you'll get this working in production?
For us, for something to work in the government, you need the buy-in from leadership. I mean, we got their blessing to conduct POCs and prototype, but given the complexity we are dealing with and all the players, we are finishing up now a POC that we're going to extend. But for us, let's say if we ever decide to go to production with a blockchain implementation, you will definitely see the announcement in the news. I mean, this is a big change for the industry. So we and also the leadership, the current leadership needs to sponsor it, and then we need to know the angle that we are trying to cover with blockchain. I mean, it's, you know, if we are talking about just an internal process within GinnieMae, well, you know, we can do that anytime.
Right.
If you're talking about something for the industry, for all the players, like a marketplace, then that's a big change, and it will be exactly like the same format, you know, and the same impact as an affordable care, you know, marketplace. It's going to be in that size, because when I was asked by my lead, like, explain it to me, this concept of blockchain, what we're trying to do, and I told her that, you know, this is exactly like the affordable healthcare, but housing. So for me, it's complex. I have been in that Obamacare development as a chief data architect. So for me, you know, I've seen the complexity. This is the same thing. I mean, it's complex, and you really need the buy-in from your organization. I think we are getting the buy-in that this is a viable technology. We need to bring it in. Do we bring it internal? It's a no-brainer. We can do it anytime. An implementation, you know, for our current processes to be on blockchain. It's the one that impacts everybody. That's a bit of a challenge. Hope that answered the question.
Right. It's convoluted because you have so many different players, so many different champions that you have to bring to make sure that their context is considered and all that. But to the other point, and then I'll shut up. Does GinnieMae have any plans to create any internal systems using blockchain technology and maybe kind of lead the way in that fashion?
Yeah, we are talking to some operation folks about, you know, like, if you want to automate, why automate using just different technology? Look at blockchain as a vehicle, as a pipe that you know, control your transactions. So we are doing that. So again, I mean, it's something that we are pursuing. I am hoping that I will keep providing updates in the housing working group that GBA has. So I'm going to be coming on that on a bi-weekly basis, and I will give an update on what we are doing and progressing with. So if you guys want to link up to that one, please contact Gerard. It's definitely something that I am going to use as a platform to brief the industry on what we are doing. We have created this, Mike and I created this housing, U.S. federal housing blockchain network, and we started with education. We want everybody to be educated on blockchain. So there is strong interest from HUD, VA, USDA. Everybody is on board. They want to see something. But for us, just, you know, in terms of the funding requirement that it will take for an implementation at that scale, the buy-in from our leadership, the selection of a technology, and also the roles. Who's going to be the custodian? Who's going to be like the operator of this? These are things that, you know, the lab is trying to provide some kind of, not really answers, but, you know, hints to, like, this can work here. It can work because everything we do in the government, there is a policy impact. So, and we need to manage that.
Yeah.
I see Sandy, you have a question.
So Omar, this is one of the best presentations that this group has received, just phenomenal. And the discussion is incredible. I want to go back to one of the earlier slides where you talked about using databases and ledgers in databases. There are blockchains that are put into databases, mostly done in the banking industry, from my understanding is. Are you very knowledgeable of that, where it's not just a ledger, but a blockchain ledger that are incorporated into a database? And if you've explored those,
You know, I have not, and I welcome that information, Sandy, if you have it. You know, for me, and you know, I know Mike can testify to what I'm just saying. I have been pushing the vendors to really put as much data on the chain, because, you know, some, like, for example, Hyperledger, you cannot put everything on the chain. I mean, there is on chain and off chain. So for me, if there is a technology that the banking sector, and the banking sector has been using widely Corda R3 And we have seen that demoed, we have seen the bank using it. So if there is a new technology in blockchain that has the blockchain aspect, I mean, it has to really have that, criteria for it to be like blockchain or DLT. I'm definitely share it with me, share it with Mike Hoffman. Mike Hoffman is my partner. He's helping us. We've been working, him and I, on not just on blockchain, but innovation, innovation for about, 10 years, Mike? So, it's been a journey, and we've been, bringing new concept, new technology to GinnieMae. And we've been connected with John Bell from VA. I mean, really, we are inspired by the work they are doing in VA. USDA also is leading the charge on few items in MISMO. So they are very involved. And so if you want to meet the VA, the USDA, the FHA, the GinnieMae, and HUD, we are at MISMO. We meet quarterly, and I am hoping that those agencies will find their way to the GBA, to the blockchain working group, because for me there is value that folks can bring in this type of working group like this one. I mean, this has been phenomenal for us. I mean, we are seeing every week, we're seeing something different. So I appreciate that, Sandy. And I see somebody else. Gerard, do you have another question?
This is Josh. I just want to jump in and say thank you, Omar, for presenting today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.
Thank you.